right, welcome to the xa'isla Handbook Part 6. In this video, we're going to be talking about my personal favorite group of consonants. And these are what we call lateral sounds. So lateral sounds are made by pressing the tip of your tongue against your alveolar ridge and blowing air out around the sides of your tongue. So that's why they're called lateral sounds. Lateral means like sideways or alongside. So in this diagram, the tip of your tongue is going up against your alveolar ridge, the little bump behind your upper front teeth. So your tongue is going to be up here, and this arrow here shows which way the air is going to be traveling. So this is going around the sides of your tongue. That's why they're called lateral sounds. The regular L and the glottalized L are resonants, which don't involve blowing air out of your mouth. Instead, the air comes out of your nostrils. So that's why these letters are up here, and the rest of them are down here. And these diagrams, these symbols look a little unusual. So this here, this symbol is the same as that one. It's supposed to have an apostrophe on top of it, but it's kind of stuck to the very top instead of being above it. So I'll have to fix that in when I edit this document. The same thing is kind of happening here with this apostrophe. It's supposed to be directly on top of the L, but for some reason it's kind of right beside it, in front of it, and kind of stuck to the top. So you can see here in this paragraph, the apostrophe is directly on top of the L where it should be. So that's how these should look. These apostrophes should be on top of these symbols. But for whatever reason, they ended up being kind of on the side, which is not right. So we'll go over some examples of words starting with these sounds. So this first symbol here, this symbol kind of looks like an upside down backwards Y. This is called a lambda. And something I want to point out is that you normally wouldn't see these little curves all over at the ends of these lines. These are here because of the font. This is the Times New Roman font. This is just the way that Times New Roman renders these symbols. If you were to handwrite these, you wouldn't need to draw these curves in at the ends of the lines. You would just use straight lines. So a straight line going up this way and a straight line coming down. So that's just something to keep in mind. It looks this way because of the font, the Times New Roman font. So the example here is xa'isla. Xa'isla. So this lambda symbol sounds like a D-L. Xa'isla. And this means silver reed. Most people probably would refer to it as buttercup root. I use silver reed here because of the limited space that I had to type in this row here. So silver reed or buttercup root. The next symbol here, it's the same as the lambda, but it has a line going through the middle of it. This is called a barred lambda. Sometimes referred to as the running man, because he does kind of look like a man that's running. Here's his legs, here's his arms, here's his head. So you can call it whatever you want. Again, don't feel like you have to memorize all of the technical terms. I mentioned before that I use a lot of the linguistic terminology because it's easier for me when I'm teaching, because I have to call all of these things by some kind of name, so it's easier for me to use the linguistic name for everything. But you can call this a barred lambda, you can call it the running man, whatever is easier for you. And the example here is tlakya. Tlakya. So this running man or this barred lambda makes a TL sound. Tla. Tlakya means to paddle. And then we have the same symbol as above, but now it has an apostrophe on top. So this is called an ejective barred lambda, sometimes called the sweating running man, because the apostrophe up here makes it look like he's sweating. So you can call it the ejective barred lambda, you can call it the sweating running man, whatever is easier for you. It doesn't really matter that much as to what you call it. Just recognize the symbol and how it sounds. So what we're doing here is we're trying to associate the sound of the language with the symbols of the hybrid orthography. So this sweating running man at the start of this word, and you can see that there, and the word is t'ati. T'ati. So it's similar to the barred lambda, which sounds like tla, tl, but it's an ejective sound, which means it's more forceful or maybe kind of explosive. So it sounds like t. T'ati means ulakangris in the xa'isla language. And this symbol here, I think maybe I'll zoom in a little bit more. You can get a better look at these symbols here. So here's the lambda. Here's the barred lambda. Here's the ejective barred lambda. You can see they start off the same. They all have one thing added to them as they go down. And then this symbol here, you can see this is a lowercase l. And this squiggly line going through it, this is called a tilde. So this symbol is called a tilted L. It's a tilted L. Some people might call it a barred L, but that's not really the accurate term for this symbol, because this has a squiggly line going through it, whereas a barred L would have a straight line going through it. And this is my personal favorite sound, and you'll hear it in the word slow. Slow. So what you're doing is you're putting the tip of your tongue against your alveolar ridge, and you're kind of holding it there. So your tongue should be curled up, and then you're blowing air out around the sides of your tongue. Something that I should mention here is that ideally you'd be pushing the air out around both sides of your tongue. But if for whatever reason, it's not comfortable for you to have the air going around both sides of your tongue, you can turn your tongue one way or another to direct it around to one side of your mouth. So you can turn it and kind of blow the air out of your right side of your mouth. Or you can turn your tongue and direct the air out of your left side. So, right side, left side, both sides. Whatever works for you, whatever is most comfortable for you. Again, the most conventional way is to blow the air out around both sides of your tongue. But again, it's up to you as to which way you want to direct the air. And slow means strong. Next we have a regular letter L, and we hear this twice in the word lalagwade. Lalagwade. Pay attention to this vowel combination at the end, AI. If you think back to the vowel video that I did a while back, AI says eh. So this is something to keep in mind. This is something that's very important, because I hear a lot of people say lalagwade. Lalagwade. That is not the correct pronunciation. It's lalagwade. There should be an eh sound at the end, not an a sound. Lalagwade. And this means butterfly. And you've probably started to notice a pattern with these groupings of consonants. We usually have a regular version of a sound followed by another version of the sound that has an apostrophe on top. So with the previous group of letters, well, the one before the last one, we did the alveolar group of consonants that ended with a regular N and then a glottalized N. So you've probably picked up on that pattern if you're very observant and you've watched the previous videos. So that's a way of signifying and kind of separating the resonant sounds here, because you can see here you have the L, you have the regular L up here and the glottalized L. So these are resonant sounds, which means that the air is coming out through your nasal passage and coming out through your nostrils, whereas these sounds are coming out through your mouth. So these are mouth sounds, these are nasal sounds. So again, I tried to pick a word that has multiple glottalized L's because you're not going to hear any difference at the beginning of a word. So this glottalized L will sound exactly like a regular letter L because it's at the beginning of a sound or beginning of a word, and all words start from nothing. They start from glottal stops. This apostrophe on top of the L signifies a glottal stop. So since you're starting a whole new word, you're not going to hear any difference between this glottalized L and a regular L. You are going to hear it before the second glottalized L. So we're going to start off by saying li, li. So if you listen closely, you can hear that I cut the sound off very, very abruptly. Li. So what I'm doing is I'm closing my glottis. The glottis is the opening between my vocal cords. So I'm saying li, la ka. Li, la ka. So you should hear a pause before the second glottalized L. That's why I try to choose words that have a glottalized consonant in the middle at the same time as being in front. So I usually see two instances. That was something that I was consciously doing when I was choosing example words. And li'laka means to dry berries. So I provide some explanation here in the following paragraph. So the lambda symbol is called, this symbol is called a lambda, which comes from the Greek alphabet and makes a DL sound, like in the English word paddle. Thinking back, this is actually not a very good example. I would say a better example in English would be like madly, sadly, or gladly, instead of paddle. This is actually not a very good example. So I would say madly, gladly, sadly are much better examples of the lambda sound. In the brackets here, this is very important. It's not a GL sound like the word glue. So this is not gliksam, like a GL, it's gliksam. So gla instead of gla. If you listen closely, you should be able to hear the difference between gla and gla. So you kind of have to get used to hearing that. You have to train your ear to hear the sounds of the language accurately. So think of the word madly in English. That's a better example. The barred lambda makes a TL sound like the word rattle. This is also not a very good example. I'm going to change this when I revise this document. One thing that I point out to people fairly often is that a common last name here in Kitimat Village is Maitland. And you can actually hear that I said it with a xa'isla accent. I said Maitland. Maitland. That's a good example. That's a common last name here. So it's a TL sound, not CL like clam or KL. So this here is tlakya, TL, not klakya like clam. And then this last one here, we have the ejective barred lambda. We're going down to the top of the next page here. So this is an ejective barred lambda, and it's like the barred lambda, but is a more forceful sound. It sounds like TL, but with more of a clicking sound at the start, because we're really forcing that air out quickly. So it's just like the example that we used, which was ati. That's a word that starts with the ejective barred lambda sound. Ati. And then we have the tilted L. So we have this is a tilted L. It's an L with this squiggly line going through it called a tilde, going through the middle of it. It sounds like the LTH in wealth. You can hear that I actually said it with a xa'isla accent. It's very difficult for me to actually say this in English because I'm so used to saying, I'm so used to making that sound that I kind of just accidentally make that sound when I don't mean to. So I'll try this again. Wealth, wealth. I did it again a little bit. It was a little bit softer that time, but wealth, wealth, wealth. I kind of have to practice that. I have to retrain myself to say that in English. It's like the LTH in wealth, but with more of a hissing sound made by air going around the sides of the tongue, which I talked about a little bit earlier. Now, since these are such unique sounds, it's difficult to represent them with English letters when the sounds don't exist in that language. So some of these sounds don't have English equivalents. Like the ejective barred lambda has no English equivalent. There's no sound in English, and there's no sound in English either. There is in Welsh. There is, and the way they actually represent this sound in Welsh is with two L's. So if you think of the word, the name Lloyd, it starts with two L's. Well, we say Lloyd here in North America. In Wales, they say Lloyd. In Welsh, it's Lloyd. Here in North America, you might know somebody named Llewellyn. In Wales, they'll call her Llywelyn. So that's a little interesting fact. So these symbols were used by Hein Vinck later in his career. So these are kind of they were unofficially used by Hein Vinck. He didn't use it in any publicly available materials, like no dictionaries have these symbols that Hein Vinck created. No teaching materials have these symbols. They actually appear in a linguistic article that he published in a journal around 1980. So it's kind of unofficial. So that was late in his career, in his studies with the xa'isla language. But these were officially used by Lincoln and Rath in their published dictionary, which came out in 1986. And that's where these symbols actually come from. When I created the hybrid orthography, it's essentially Emma Bach's second orthography, but I changed these symbols. I switched these and inserted them into Emma Bach's second orthography. So that's some explanation about these lateral sounds and the symbols that represent these sounds, and they were chosen to accurately represent these sounds. So it might take a little bit of getting used to, but once you get a handle on these sounds, the rest of the symbols are going to be relatively easy in comparison. So yeah, so hopefully that helps. Thank you for watching. Wah.